very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mungu Shampagi. And tonight we'll continue the discussion of the unending story of insecurity in this country following the murder of Arua Municipality Member of Parliament, the yellow man Ibrahim Abiriga. There have been chaotic scenes in Arua this evening following the return of Abiriga's body to Arua. There were fights both in Arua town and at his home, his town home, receiving different information so far on what could have triggered this. One of the things, what I've just read from somebody, people in Arua, saying that one part of the culture is a person doesn't, especially one who has been murdered in broad daylight, that death must be, people are angry, justifiably, and they're looking for answers on who is responsible. We'll be asking the question, is the death of Ibrahim Abiriga just another statistic, or shall we get some answers? So far, what we have, I have seen another statement issued by the president in which he says all sorts of things about these pigs will not be allowed to succeed. I'll read the exact framing of what he has said, but he talked about idiots and cowards being responsible for this killing. Haven't we had too many of these explanations? We'll also be asking you to join us in this discussion. But tonight, in studio, I have with me Onapito Ekomloit, Corporate and Legal Affairs Director at Nile Breweries AB InBev. Ona, very nice to have you.
Good evening, Charles. Good evening, viewers.
From Makerere University, we have Yusuf Serunkuma. He is a PhD student. He's studying security or
secessionist
nationalism in
Somalia.
Somalia.
Yeah.
People of West Nile have been talking about creating belonging to another entity called the Kingdom of Lago, something like that.
Yeah. Every country has one of those, actually. It's not just Uganda and Somalia. Every country in this, even Rwanda, has a small entity seeking secessions so that can create a different independent state.
Okay.
So, you know, I think scholarship has to start looking into that direction and think about secessionist nationalism as different from, say, anti-colonial or nationalism as we think about it nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have Lydia Wanyoto. Lydia Wanyoto is a member of the Central Executive Committee of the National Resistance Movement. She is the chairperson of the Women's League of the NRM, and she was among the very first people to reach the death site of Ibrahim Abiriga in Kawanda when he was shot on Friday evening. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening, our viewers and listeners.
And you've been following through these processes because you were at the home, you were in Parliament today for the for the special session.
Yes.
I want to start the many questions that people are asking. One of the questions is, who would want Abiriga dead? Why would anybody want Abiriga dead? Why Abiriga? I don't know if those will get answers. The bigger concern is, it appears to follow some kind of pattern. One person dies, important people in this country, the president, the security systems, and I did tell our viewers that we are not bringing in any person from the security because the security chiefs from the military, from the police, and from the prisons will be speaking to the nation tomorrow on their own. So they wouldn't come to preempt what I'm going to say tomorrow. We'll wait if that happens anyway, because also the burial of Abiriga will be tomorrow. And given the chaos that's happening in Arua this evening, we can't predict what will happen, but at least there's a promise that the CDF, the IGP, and the inspector, the Commissioner General of the Uganda prisons will be speaking to the nation about this spate of insecurity. They blame the ADF. ADF's commander, Jamil Mukulu, is still undergoing pre-trial over the last 2 weeks at the International Crimes Division of the High Court. Lydia, I want to start with you. You arrived, you're one of the first people to arrive at at Kawanda, where Abiriga was shot. How quickly did this information circulate, and what did you find when you got there?
I want first to correct an impression that I was among the first people to arrive there. Maybe if to say about maybe the national leaders from the political party, but the residents of Kawanda were there.
Yes, of course.
And the local security people were there. So I thought that should be corrected, because sometimes we misrepresent, and that can cause problems. But I got there after a lot of traffic troubles, and part of our problems that the security, the arsonists are using is if you are in a jam, then you become a victim even to be saved, because we had to, even your own media teams, I think they had to maneuver through borders to reach the scene of crime. And so when we got there, I was with some other members of parliament. We got there, my heart had run to the family and see what was happening, because it happened before he had reached home. And first of all, let me send my condolences once again to the family of Honorable Ibrahim Abiriga and to his constituency in Arua, but also to Uganda and to the NRM party. He was such a nice, elderly, friendly old man that I think everybody would have loved to relate with. And when we got there, our interest was to be part of the community and see how we could contribute to get to tying the knots that everybody was asking, whether it is true he has been killed and why and what was happening. Because people were asking on platforms and there were no quick answers from where we stand, because the messages were coming from security and also from the local community. And what we got there, what struck me when I got there, this from a personal view, is that the place was dark. The place was being powered by people's vehicles and small phones and torches. That's also another indicator. When talk about, there must be institutions that speak to each other. There must be communication, there must be light and such. But if it's dark, how are you going to pursue the enemy or the person that has... Because I was surprised that such an incident could happen and there is no power in the area.
How many kilometers out of the city are we talking about? About what distance?
15?
I don't think so because of the distance of the town. It was just because that area has power, definitely.
Yes.
But there was a blackout that particular time.
Look at the distance for emergency response.
The Kawanda is just near here. In a normal situation, I'm talking in terms of minutes. I mean, it cannot take you 20, 30 minutes. No. But the traffic jam, because I'm talking about where I was located near Parliament. But leaving Parliament to reach Kawanda, we had to use so many other access routes to get there. And that tells a story. If you're going to do a rescue, we need to understand better, I think, the maps of the city and people to get there. Because sometimes people say people delay to reach there, but they don't understand what
it takes to get there.
Yeah, what it takes to get there. So I took that risk or that effort to say why and people get there, who is not answering questions. And we realized that actually traffic jam was part of it. You needed to jump maybe to get a border. And if you're in a vehicle, if you wanted to change your route, then where do you leave that vehicle? So that was the part of the challenge. And I later learned that some of the media outlets actually, your journalists jumped on the border to maneuver their way to the scene of crime. So that should also be something that the security people should think about, or any other people, that you don't hear there's a problem in an area X. Supposing the assailants make sure that they jump the routes, what do you do then? So I think that we need to think through these things, and that if agents are going to speak tomorrow, I think they have work to do, many things they have to do, including on how to access areas in time and in terms of attending to alarms.
You raise a very interesting issue there.
Yeah.
Why don't we ever see some of this coming out in discussions when they have killed somebody? For the last 2-3 years, since the murder of John Kagezi, the thing has been put CCTV cameras all over. Increase CCTV cameras. Nobody talks about accessibility. Nobody talks about emergency response. In the case of Major Muhammad Chigundo, in the case of Kawesi, former AIGP Kawesi, in the case of Joan Kagezi, in the case of the Muslim clerics that were killed, you never see a discussion. No, that somebody has been killed among, or there's been an attack. In organized societies, the first things you expect is, yes, rings of security people, but also emergency vehicles. Just in case
rings of security of people,
a life to save.
And the reinforcement mechanisms, but also the response mechanism. And I sit here not to participate in the blame games, is to see how we can face this problem head on. And Charles and colleagues, I don't know what has happened, but for me as Wanyoto, I have lost 2 brothers I lost a brother who was shot in 2012. Another brother was shot or was killed in 2014. And we've never been able, as a family, to get justice. One left 6 children, another one left 4 children. So I'm not speaking just because I'm a leader of NRM. I'm speaking because I'm a Ugandan whose family has directly been affected by people being gunned down and then leaving. And you try to get this security system to follow up. You go to court to get justice done. You get some suspects, and the story dies just like that. So this is not a problem. We need to get to the bottom of is it possible that people can be gunned down and that culprits are not caught and that families remain in grief and in fear. The biggest thing also I've noticed that there's a lot of fear inflicted in the community, but also in families. Because the way these guys are shot, if you saw what happened, if you are with us in that on Friday evening, and there is beyond killing somebody, you see anger. Why would you blow a whole magazine on somebody's head? I mean, they should be able to explain, extract, and create an understanding of what's causing this, what are the roots. Forget about other scenarios of how the people get armed. There is a level of expertise in how this is executed. Because if I could finish explaining what I saw there, from the community, Honorable Abiriga used to drive to that particular trading center and stop and buy a few things before. His home is the walkable distance from the trading center. But when you turn off from the car inspection place in Kawanda, then you turn off, there is a trading center. And he used to stop there almost every day. But this time on Friday, he slowed the speed of the vehicle and told the guy at the shop that today I'm not stopping, I'm rushing to break the fast. But the guys that shot him and his brother were just near where the matoke, so there's an area for matoke sale. And that's why they had packed their borders, like they were now asking for the price of matoke. So there has been, you can tell that there has been a tracking of his routine and that they could not miss their target. The same, I think, was with the Kawesi. I was not in the country when it happened. But it has been when you follow the story of how people are murdered, if you think through, you realize that they have been tracked over a period of time, and even the geography of their exit routes of the areas are also known. Because these guys drove straight on and turned. So they have a good understanding of the area. And this was something that lay people can understand. And then they create shock and fear. Because the gunshots that are shot by 2 people, for a common community that has been living, you get shocked. Because people are saying, why did they take cameras? You can't.
Let me ask a question here. 2 days on, between Friday, yesterday, and today, is there an indication of what might be the motive? Why would anybody target Abiriga of all people?
As far as I'm concerned, actually, I'm still under shock. Because I also had a relationship with Abiriga. Abiriga was an RDC and a member of parliament in an area that my father was the first black district commissioner at Independence. So I had that. So it's not just because he's a member of my party. So I'm not.
You had some kind of attachment.
Yeah. I'm still under that situation of like, I can't add 1 to 2 to know why he was killed. It's very painful, but it happened. And also, it's always good to give chance to the experts, the street people, and maybe people who are now reconstructing the scene of the incident to tell us what was the cause or how it happened. But what I can tell from the civilian perspective, as somebody that was around town when it happened, is to be able to appreciate the circumstances people found themselves and how the issues of access and the family, and how we should be able to fight back and resolve. This is not an easy matter. It's not a small thing. It has been on for some time now that people get killed and we don't get justice and answers and stuff.
Honor, we've been debating this for some time. Is Abiriga likely to become another statistic?
Look,
that I'll tell you how the president has framed it here.
We've seen the president's statement. He has given so many. Charles, I've been following events in the course of the day since the prayers in the mosque, the appearance in Parliament, and then above all in Arua. I've been struggling with tears at some moments because you can't help feeling the weight of this death on the country. Not so much because Ugandans are not used to people dying. I'm sure we have lost a lot of people in all parts of the country. But there's something about Abiriga's death which has really gripped the nation and is frightening in its own way. It sort of speaks to the loss of innocence of the country. Like the country is losing its soul. Because Abiriga is really a type of person you would see anywhere in Uganda. That person who might have had one too many and could be singing on the road, and people kind of find comic relief from his noise, and people really don't mind him. He doesn't offend anyone. So, with all the wars in Uganda, there has always been that element that Uganda is truly the land of freedom in a way. There's been some innocence about Ugandans. But suddenly we are now developing a culture of killing. Ugandans lynch thieves and what have you, but the idea that anybody can just be killed has not actually been a Ugandan thing. Even with all the wars we have had, there has been a sense of community in this country. But increasingly, I think people are feeling that there is a new culture of killing. And imagine this is being played out on TV. Young kids are watching. So what generation are we going to end up with? A generation that believes that you can actually kill someone. It's almost, the movie world is being acted in real time. In Nigeria, kind of stuff is starting to happen in real time in the country. The idea of kidnapping for ransom. These are things which people have been seeing in movies, but now Ugandans are starting to live them. And that is really frightening. And unfortunately, the response is more about the same idea that you can actually scare people by saying, we shall get you. I mean, apparently there's a hardening of hearts, which cannot just be addressed by fire with the fire. So how do you re-soften the hearts of Ugandans to start valuing human life? Because that is, to me, is what really is most frightening about Abiriga's death, that someone who, for all intents and purposes, was the unofficial comedian of the NRM, you know? He was really liked by both NRM and the NRM opponents because he would provide comic relief. So if such a person can get killed, it means that there's no more innocent person who can say, for me, nobody can kill me, I haven't done anything, I'm just an ordinary person. It means you could get killed. Because it's becoming a culture that you can kill someone, get away with it, and life continues.
Does anybody know, do you, from the main explanations of the many people who have been killed, do you get a feeling, a confidence that somebody has an idea who this might be?
First of all, I don't want to believe that it's one person or one group of individuals who are doing these killings. My only belief is that there are now so many groups that are starting to believe in the idea of killing for whatever motive, for money, for property. So the fact that people are emboldened to kill, regardless of who they are, is what should be worrying the country.
Yusuf, let me come to you. And I want to quote from what appears here to be a statement from the president issued this evening. And this is the conclusion the president draws. Down with the pigs, down with the parasites. Abiriga has joined the glorious list of our warriors who fell in the struggle. Martin Mwesigwa Black, Valerian Waheru, Kajina, Mosisi, and numerous others that contributed to the victory of the NRM and the people of Uganda. The question is, you're moving in a pattern. The president talks about the murder of Kawesi, the murder of Joan Kagezi, the murder of Major Chigundo, the murder of the Muslim sheikhs. He also mentions in this statement, like he did even during the State of the Nation address on Tuesday, talks about the murder, the kidnap for ransom and murder of Susan Magara and the women that were being killed in especially the Entebbe area and Nansana. The question is, I am waiting to see if tomorrow the security chiefs will give the answers that Ugandans are asking for.
They don't have them.
Who has those answers if I don't?
They don't have them. But I should start from saying that I wasn't shocked when Abiriga was shot.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, because firstly, I'm a Muslim who has lived in this country and seen so many of our scholars get killed. So you tend to get used to the killing of those that are so dear to you. And you know, one of my a piece I wrote in The Observer, I think in April, I said preparing for the next murders, that we should be set mentally. And I was speaking from the Luganda adage that ichijomanyi chinyaga bitono. So we should be mentally prepared that this is just the beginning. I can guarantee you, if you've lived through this violence from 2012, when our sheikhs are being killed, through the murder of John Kagezi and through the murder of Fandi Kawisi, nothing is happening. I mean, Abiriga is not shocking. I mean, the women who are murdered every day are mothers, are sisters, are wives to people. And so these families, the families that are victims of these murders go through this pain every single day. I'm not saying you should say it's cathartic, it's poetic justice that one of the NRM bigwigs is, well, not a bigwig, one of the NRM enthusiasts has been shot. We should do that. And I think it's high time we started to do a very, we need to historicize these murders. They're not coming from the blue. They have a history and a pattern. Lydia here spoke about the expertise of the executioners. They're very expert at their game. They know that when you do urban warfare, you can easily mingle with the community and you can easily escape. They know that media can easily access a place as near as Kulambiro, where Kawesi was murdered, as Kawempe, so that, you know, the news will spread so fast, you know, that kind of thing. The ruthlessness with which they take out their targets, it's beyond just killing somebody. One bullet is enough, but they ruin the entire body. These are not innocent acts. They follow a particular pattern and they have motives. So we need to ask questions. What explains this? You know, as an academic, I've been trying to think through this, and you know, and I think President Museveni is a very difficult time now to explain it away from his government, because in across history, governments often do this. All right, when you got back to the Obote government after the attack on Uganda in 1966, there was so much anxiety around the Uganda question after Obote had attacked Uganda. Now, what happened? Obote had to devise a means of distracting public anxiety towards Uganda. So he actually had armed robberies, the rise of the Bakondo. If you've read this history, they were actually working for the government. So the populace then started demanding for guarantees of security as opposed to the Uganda anxiety. And you know, you may tend to think that we're now going through a kind of similar pattern. You know, I think we've entered an era where insecurity is the mode of governmentality. All right, like, you know, you start demanding the security. I was telling you earlier before the show that this country is so hard up on the economy. All right, and if you read earlier scholars, they argue that one of the ways that a socialist thought he could govern Uganda was through impoverishing the people. Now Ugandans are too poor to be governed. All right, it's not just the Ugandans who are broke, but even the president is broke. If you look at our foreign debt.
So how does another death?
Let me make this connection and put it in proper perspective. The country is broke. If you have a foreign debt of 38 trillion and the economy is, how many, 23? Surely that's the meaning of bankruptcy. All right, so this country is technically broke. Now, so much anxiety around the economy is actually driving this country crazy. There are taxes on every little thing. There's this, they're trying to do that. Now, this anxiety has to be channeled elsewhere. Some of the pundits have argued, and I tend to agree with them to a point, that, you know, now our anxiety is being distracted from the economy to security. All right? So now we're debating security away from debating the economy, because I'm sure you've had many of these shows debating the economy every single day.
Actually, what you're mentioning, I've been in contact with some Ugandan engineers working with one of the major telcos who are being phased out. Since about 4 years ago, the telcos, the big ones, have been outsourcing a lot of their work and rendering Ugandans jobless. So, and actually it's bad because they make them train the people who are going to take their jobs. After training, they exit you.
Exactly.
And so there's a lot of anxiety. No one seems to be paying attention. It's not the Minister of Labor. It's not, I think they petitioned State House, they petitioned security agencies, because if you have the controls of the servers that control your communication elsewhere. You can tax them, but you have no control over the information that is being exchanged in the platform. So when you talk about that anxiety, I think I tend to understand.
Charles, the only nexus I would agree with this analysis within the economy is not that the government is using it as a diversion, in my view. I can only agree that, one, there's been social breakdown in this country because of all the wars and all. There have been generations of people who have been raised up in IDPs, they are jobless. You can only say that some of them may be seeing killing for hire as a way of survival. And they don't have to be hired by the state to do it. Of course, some elements, just hold on. Some elements of the state could also be for hire, not because the state is making them do it, in my view. I just think there's a lot of social turmoil in society mixed with economic distress, which makes killing become an industry.
Or become acceptable.
Charles, that was the point I was making.
Yes. If you could just make the point.
That was the point I was making. That was the point I was making. I was making that, insecurity actually favors the government. That's the point I'm making, and I'm strong on this one. From the history I gave you of how Obote channeled anxiety over propaganda to anxiety over insecurity, this is the same game that, governments have played across history. It's not just Museveni's government. And I can tell you, Museveni is a very smart man. He's read all these historians and legendary leaders and the way they've been able to manage these places. The point I'm trying to make is that you feel the anger, the anxiety over the economy. Museveni feels it twice because in charge of all these forces that are trying to make sure the economy is stabilized. You know how economy has been really shaky. So now there must be the last 3 years this economy has been really bad.
I'm listening to you and just trying to understand the logic of this. How do you select your targets? Who do you remove? Why do you remove them? In what manner do you remove them? How much do you expend on that? How does that help you to deal with the stresses of the economy? Those are questions that
can I just pick
this up after a very short commercial break? We'll be right back.
Because it's a pattern I need to.
Two basic questions that need answers. Who and why? Would anybody have wanted Abiriga dead? Yes, someone did. And actually that's why they took him out. Did anybody want Andrew Felix Kawesi dead? Yes, someone did, and that's why they took him out. Did anybody want Joan Kagezi dead? Yes, somebody did, and they took her out. And the very many other people who have been killed. The question is, who are these people and why are they killing these people? Are they killing? And what's the bigger motive? The president says this could be political. He doesn't rule out other reasons, personal relationships that could have gone wrong, business, or anything else could have contributed. But Inteja Simo is watching us and says, these killings or murders are political and the objective is to discredit Museveni's government. Abiriga was murdered to Mazo NRM Ovazilla supporters, members. However, as a member of NRM, we shall triple our resolve to defeat the negative forces. RIP, Right Honorable Ibrahim Abiriga. Inteja Simo. Would anybody want?
But before I wanted to ask to add a few questions that actually are bothering many people. I've talked about the issue of the nature of expertise of the arsonists, the people who are killing people, the way they are doing it. It's not just it's not just any other person who can just get a gun and go. The way they are doing it, these guys they are professionals and they know how to chase their target and they don't miss targets and they do it with a huge element of anger, with the way they dismantle somebody's whole body infrastructure. The second one is that not every Ugandan, including me and you, can easily access guns and bullets and any armors. So that's another question that we need to put out. Our country has rules and regulations. We know where the armories are, who runs them, how our procurement of ammunition is done. Even if we have porous borders, we know how guns get into. So that's another question. How come there's so much ammunition there, like we saw the other day, 2-3 magazines on one person? They
emptied 158 bullets into Kawesi and his bodyguards.
Yeah, so that's one. I mean, that's a question on the table. The second one, the different types of guns. and the expertise that to trigger them and be able to run them. That cannot be done by anybody. You can have the expertise, but also accessing armors. I mean, those are the questions that should be on the table. But finally, before I should...
Or you might chance on a gun, but you might not know how to use it effectively.
Those are some of the questions that are bothering me as a national. That we have wrong people, that our ammunition, whatever form and whatever set of the art that they are in wrong hands. That's a question that should be on the table. How come that people that ought not to have such ammunition have them, and they're being used to finish that?
They are in the right hands.
Last question.
They may be in the right hands, but using for the wrong purpose.
Okay, for me, that's the question on the table.
That's the point she's trying to...
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make on the table. If we get ammunition in Uganda, and whatever arms we have, they should be to protect Ugandans and our property. It's not to eliminate us. That's the question I want on the table. Finally, is the issue of our own systems. Tomorrow, the chiefs will talk to us, but my biggest concern is that although the work of security is through their leadership, the biggest security, the most important core security, is by people, individuals, and in the household. And we have a breakdown of the local council system. I've been having a big debate about whether we want elected LOC councils or appointed LOC councils in a functional government system. Because if you have a local council elected system, I mean, if you have a local council that is functional, then you'll have LOCs that are able to account for the people in their community. Who has come to your village, who is leaving your village, who is on the village, who works in this market. We should be able to, let me finish. We should be able to account. We should be having a structure and system that accounts for the movement of people. That's part of the...
Let me just interject here a little bit.
If I could finish, because I'm putting on table the questions.
Yes.
And where the answers should be coming from. We need yesterday accountability at village level and the movement of people. Because I've just told you that if we went to Kawanda yesterday, and I think people were at Ulambiro, there is good knowledge of the executioners of the person. Yeah, they have a knowledge, they have good knowledge, and the geography of the area. But if you have people that are sensitive, that have a street lanes on the village, they will be able to suspect, this guy came yesterday with a border parked here. He's not a member of our village, and he went away. He has come back today, because this guy is actually using at least border, whatever, cyclists. So, I mean, that sensitivity of local leaders is lacking.
Yes, I hear you.
And that should be on the table.
I hear you. I listened to members of parliament eulogize Ibrahim Abiriga. We had Ugandans talk about the murder of Kawesi, the murder of Joan Kakezi. Everybody talks. Everybody is reading from the Book of Lamentations. You sit in the highest policy-making body of the national resistance movement. The national resistance movement is in charge of this country and created the LC system, killed the LC system, and people asking the questions. And the biggest claim has been, security has been the number one thing that President Yoweri Museveni, over the last 32 years, has said that has been his core. He emphasizes it every time he has an opportunity. Are these discussions happening? I saw the announcement about the security chief speaking to us, and I've been asking one question consistently. They are going to speak in an environment they control. So they are going to speak to Ugandans, not be challenged by Ugandans on what answers Ugandans need. And I'm hoping that the viewers can send us questions that we can add to the list that they should respond to. But I'm imagining they are going to engage in a public relations exercise tomorrow to tell us we are in charge, we are in control, we know what is going on, we are pursuing ABC leads without anybody challenging them. But every day a person dies, we get the same kind of statements being made, whether from the president or from the security system, Minister for Internal Affairs, Minister for Security, security chiefs. Are these discussions happening? Is anybody asking these questions?
Of course.
Is anybody willing to give answers to these questions?
And we should give them the benefit of doubt. And I think it's...
After how many days?
I'm actually happy that the president has come out with a message and with points. Because if you're a leader and such a matter happens and then you just keep quiet, there's so much fear out there. I'm sure you also feel it, and anxiety. So you have to at least bridge you can break the silence and talk out. And we should give the security chiefs the benefit of doubt tomorrow to address the nation. But all I'm saying, like you have said, I'm not lamenting. I'm only trying to see how much we can all contribute to this animal. And I'm saying, can we now put you put your questions, and I'm also putting my own questions, including why we think there are gaps. And for me, where I think there are gaps is the lack of accountability at the household level, at community level. If today, I don't know where you live, but if I left the studio today and went to stay in your house, where do you stay? I don't think that the LOC person or the local people in your area would know that they would know that somebody came to your place. For me, that's where the fiber is.
I think that challenge, that's a real challenge for the country, but I don't think the LCs are the ones who are going to solve it.
Whatever you give,
just hold on.
Whatever name you give it,
the biggest crisis right now, and the president has hinted on it, is that in urban areas, especially in this city, we are in a total jungle. There is absolute chaos of who is in this city and where.
That is what my
there
point actually.
Totally no structure of the city,
of
settlement, of the population. So it is almost impossible.
So it makes people vulnerable, and anybody can abuse that gap.
Lady and gentlemen,
who is doing what?
The many theories.
So I'm just saying.
The many theories that are working around this. If these killings are political.
No, that's...
If the security, just a moment, just a moment.
I don't know why you're taking me to the
just
political.
Just a moment.
I don't believe it's political necessarily. I'm just saying.
I don't think those women were even political.
Let's assume it's sheer criminality. The major question would be,
crime around us.
The major question would be, how much commitment, how much competence have those charged with ensuring security and investigating committed to this? Because if you have
Charles, I'm just
cold case after cold case,
I'm trying to tell you that I think they may be committed, and there are many who are committed, but they must first of all establish certain parameters for executing this commitment. She talked of the situation of reaching the scene of this murder, the total chaos, the disorganization of the city, the lack of road infrastructure, the lack of markings of where does someone live, what plot is it. If you are calling police to come, you can't direct police until when you come to grips with that basic element of our city. This is a paradise for any criminal. It's a paradise.
Yusuf, let me come to you. During the State of the Nation address, the president summarized 2 categories of these crimes. He said the 7 sheikhs, AIGP Kawesi, Deputy DPP Joan Kagezi, and Susan Magara were killed by the ADF. He said Congo and the United Nations are harboring the ADF, and he promised to take the war to them. And then he said at least 90 people have been arrested for these murders. He said 2 were put out of action, and he said these who were killed and those who have been arrested are ADF. From a lay person's perspective, the president closed those investigations because he told the nation that he knows who is responsible for these killings. Last year, when Kawesi was killed, and at every murder, and when Joan Kagezi was killed, and at every murder of a Muslim sheikh, the police leadership closed those cases on the scene.
Exactly.
This is the work of the ADF.
Exactly.
Now, what exactly are we struggling with?
Exactly.
If we know who is responsible. The president said the murders in Masaka, the murders of the women, that is criminality, criminal elements that are going to be dealt with. So if we know who is responsible for the killing, why aren't we finding the answers?
Yeah, that's a very fantastic question you put to me. We were at Chibuli, I think in 2014, during one of the murders, and IGP then, Kyle Kahura, told the mourners that ADF is operating cells in Kampala. And you know, to our astonishment, that this man actually knows these people and where their cells are. Why doesn't he take them out? Now, what really bothers me is that my fellow panelists here speak as if Abiriga is the first murder. All right?
Nobody's.
I mean, the implication that you create from the way you're arguing presupposes that, you know, we're dealing with the first. But we need to look back because there's a pattern. We need to appreciate a pattern. I'll listen, I'm trying to make sense of what you guys have said. We need to appreciate the pattern. When you speak about the urban space, have you guys thought about urban spaces? Urban spaces are what they are. Messy, disorganized, people often crisscrossing, moving in and out. How are you going to police them? You know, when you speak that there should be a very meticulous local council governance system, what are you talking about? This is an urban space. You can do that if it's a village. But, you know, in the countryside, but this is an urban space. You can't do that. You know, that's actually, it's diverting us.
Urban should not be...
Can you protect me? Can I make this argument?
You're protected.
So let me make this argument. We are being diverted from what it means to have violence in places. By the way, violence is not bad, but violence must be orderly. What Lydia spoke about earlier is that we know who controls the tools of violence. It's the state. In fact, I was shocked that Lydia, who was, I suppose, is part of government, was actually incriminating
She's part of the party, not the part of the government.
Because when you say,
I'm Ugandan,
when you say that,
and she has the right to ask
Yusuf, I'm saying we should put on table the questions we have as Ugandans.
Sure.
So that be the beginning of
our discussion.
The discussion.
So as compatriots in this country, we give the tools of violence to the state to have total control over them. Now, for the past so many years, we've seen that the government doesn't know who is in charge of these tools. All right, who is in charge of these guns? We're just talking about the expertise in the court of the ammunition. We know it should be government with total control over these weapons. Why are they circulating in the community and being used in the way they're being used? You know, if we need to really focus this question that why are the arms of the tools of government that we, as citizens of this country, pass on and hand over to the government are now driving this country in a way it is happening. But I wanted to make a point earlier that you actually pushed me away from. I was trying to think about how violence
You're creating a nexus between the economy
insecurity and insecurity could be a method of government. And you know, at some point, because you know, this government has touted security as its key deliverable to this country. I think after some point, maybe around 2000, it seemed not to matter that, you know, what else can government give aside from security? All right, what else can it give us? And then they promised the economy. They promised middle income status. All right, but now the economy has gone bonkers. So the government has to give us what it knows best to give us. Take you back to security. How do you take us back to security?
Do you think that, Yusuf Bayeje, if I could go by your argument, do you think that this government has a plan that at some stage this will be arrested and the population can move on something else? For how long does that approach to governance work?
So, you know, there's a bit of a mismatch here. So you create a moment of insecurity. But, you know, violence begets more violence. All right? That, you know, violence is a very fluid thing that when you turn it into a language of communication, it begets more violence. You know, like it turns into violence in spiral. So what we're witnessing now is that we created, I mean, when the Sheikhs were being murdered, we did have these very robust discussions over, the country was not in so much shock that a Muslim cleric was killed. Now we tend to worry too much because, you know, it's violence in spiral. So I tend to argue, and this is a thing I'm trying to think through, that at the initial stage, it was, let's give violence a chance, and then we can arrest it. Now it's gone bonkers. It's rolling. It's rolling, and I think, I tend to think that the president is really hurt by the murder of Kawesi. I tend to think that he's hurt by the murder of John Kagizi. He's hurt by the murder of Abiriga. I think he's hurt. But you know, he's cornered. And you know the cornering? If you read the story that appeared in The Observer over the murder of Susan Magara, you know, that the president was actually cornered. The kidnappers told the family, please don't involve the police. Neither should you involve the president. Now the kidnappers, because of their connection with the president, they went and told him. And then
the family.
Yeah, the family. The family got another phone call. You made a fatal mistake involving the president. This was like properly stated during the Requiem Mass. The family told this story. You know, at that point, when the fountain of honor, the man on top, that criminals are even able to threaten a family, say, don't involve the president. And we respect him, they can say, you made a mistake. What did they do? They took the money, they killed her. What did the president do? He delivered the news.
Ona, let me come back to you. You seem to want to argue for the LC system functionality.
No, I've not argued
just
for
a moment.
the LC system.
Just a moment.
I don't think it will change anything.
The murder of Muslim clerics that we started debating in 2012 was not happening only in Kampala. I think actually of the Muslim clerics, 3 were murdered in Kampala. The murder in Chanja, the murder here at the mosque in Nakasero, the murder Entebbe Road, and this other murder in Boyogerede. 4 of them. The other 3,
Charles, there
was
are
a murder
murders up country, but because they don't get they catch the eye of the media or they're not reported, they go unnoticed. They are murders. They've been murders up country.
Thank you. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. That if there have been murders up country, where communities are not as cosmopolitan as urban spaces, have we had a closure on any of them? If a murder happened in Mbale, have we had a closure? Because everybody knows everybody. If someone comes strange into the area, they're easily trackable. Which is unlike what Lydia was talking about. Yeah. If we went together today after the show, no one would know that you came to my house. Yeah. But if that happened in the village, almost everybody would know.
That's true.
Yes, there was an
Charles, first, I'm not terribly watching for the LCs as a solution, but I certainly believe
they can contribute.
They should be much
there
more.
There can be no one solution.
I believe, especially in the city, for purpose of investigations, you need to be able to profile the population of the city. You need to be able to follow individuals if necessary. Where do they come? When they get the city, where do they go? Much of their day is spent downtown. That's where everything happening. Where do they go? Where do they retreat? That's one. But look, in terms of the series of killings, I don't believe it's one group doing these killings. What I expressed earlier at the beginning is what they call the contagion effect, and it's much more frightening. The contagion effect, when killers or other killers see others getting away with it, they will also do it.
They'll be emboldened.
So that's not what I believe that's what's happening in the country. There is a contagion effect, that there are different people who are executing killings for different reasons, because they are learning from others that somehow you can get away with it. So until when maybe the police truly get the killer, but if they keep on missing and getting some who are suspected and they are not, the real killers will influence more killing, you know?
Okay, we need to take a quick commercial break, and Bernard Impeiro is watching us from Lubaga, says, Lydia, I think as members of NRM, we need to sensitize and enforce some security guidelines to the MPs and high-profile people. Why are these people still traveling with bodyguards in enclosed cars? Honestly, what would have Honorable Abiriga's bodyguard done in the sitting position he was? The government should enforce the pickups with at least 2 guards behind cabin. If these people still want to move in wagons, they should have following pickups with guards. I think later Abiriga's security was much wanting. But Bernard, the question would be, what about all those women who have been kidnapped and young little people? I mean, young women being kidnapped and ordinary me and you. We all can't afford. The president is calling them soft vehicles that can be targeted. Soft skin vehicles. Not everybody is going to go into an armored vehicle. Yeah. So what happened to those? Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll be trying to summarize this discussion and hopefully find, ask more questions. We'll keep asking questions and hope we'll get some answers at some stage. Politically motivated, aimed at gnawing away or eating away at NRM's core strength, which is security. The work of political actors, the work of mere criminality, simple criminality. Is it the allied democratic forces based in neighboring country or other motivations? And the bigger question is, will Abiriga join the growing list of statistics of Ugandans murdered senselessly? In broad daylight, Abiriga was murdered before 7 p.m. In the evening. Kawesi was murdered about 9 a.m. in the morning. Joan Kagezi was murdered about 7 something before 8 o'clock in the night. The Muslim clerics were all murdered. In the early about 7 in the morning. 7. What exactly is going on? Yusuf has given us a theory of what he thinks. He thinks there's a nexus between the economy and the politics.
And the modes of government.
And the modes of government. He thinks government. Lydia, what do you think? What exactly do you think is going on? You said very well that we know who controls the guns and the ammunition. we've seen the man of execution is not amateurish. It's professional.
There's some level of expertise.
There's some level of expertise.
And there's also some level of tracking, which which talks to people having better intelligence infrastructure.
Yes, former security minister said exactly that.
They have better intelligence infrastructure, they have better communication, they have better coordination, which is able to enable them to execute their agenda and their target.
So this
but what I want to talk to about what Bernard raised on the message on the phone is that border protection of individuals is not sustainable, even if we wanted to. Secondly, it is not effective only because even the people that have been murdered of high profile in our country, including Honorable Abiriga, had border protection. So if we are talking about security in our country and survival of our country, I think we'll have to look at the bigger picture in terms of how we can secure every Ugandan, because every life in our country matters. But of course we have the VVIPs, that's a different story. But we need to look at the problem we have now, actually the street of all Ugandans, because the children who have been kidnapped and murdered, the women, these are common wananchi, whom many people even don't know, but they've been kidnapped and murdered. So the problem is bigger than just explaining issues of someone having a bodyguard and the positioning of the bodyguard. I think the problem is bigger than that. And finally, I still insist that it's much easier now actually to profile people who in the cities and to be able to track them and to be able to have a common understanding. And there are communities that have had vigilance self-initiatives. In many of the areas, people have had self-initiatives of community in the households, 15 houses in the community in an enclosure. 15, we can have that self-vigilance of knowing who is in the estate, who is not in the estate, locations, so that we start from there. I mean, the issue of security, while we talk about the chiefs that we'll even talk tomorrow, is bigger than just those chiefs, because the nature of the way it's unfolding, it's wide and broad. And even if the president talked about CCTV cameras in the city, these are machines that are operated by people. That and the analysis of the messages, whatever they capture is analyzed by human beings. So we also need that expertise, but also we need people that are committed, that are passionate about their work, that can do the work. My point is that we cannot have a one-off, solution to the problem of security. I am not an expert in security. I'm just a normal citizen. But in my community, we've been able to even have where I live. We've been able to know our household in the location. We meet and now and be able to pass information.
Yes, I hear you on that. But you see, when you lay down the facts of what has happened, the examples of what has happened and the people have been killed, that vigilance falls short. I'll take you back to March 17th.
Yeah, I'm now talking about the big picture. March now 17th, it cannot be a one-person show.
2017. Somebody's watching. The car driving Kawese's children gets out of the house. No, actually arrives at his home from where the guards spend the night. Picks the children, takes them to school. Comes back, and it's not attacked. Comes back to pick the boss. In broad daylight. 9 o'clock. Kulambiro is just 8-9 kilometers outside of the city center. For all intents and purposes, it's a very heavily populated area. Everybody's watching. And someone is able to stop the car, pump not one bullet and run away. They have enough time to execute their mission and walk away. What you're talking about yesterday, on Friday, Daishut Abiriga, they have the time to make sure that he's not just killed, but he's properly killed, if you could do something like that.
They will not just talk to the people in the neighborhood.
And someone is shouting, go back. We're not interested in you, we're interested in this particular people, in this particular person. That no amount of gated community can prevent. I think
that also speaks to the issue of having border protection.
Which is the question of, yes, and you're talking about security. These at least guarded. You, I, Yusuf, Ona, all of us will get out of here, jump on a border, jump into a taxi, drive a car, go back home on your own. They can find you anywhere. The question is, the explanations that have been coming from those who are responsible are they sufficient to give anybody comfort that at least somebody knows who is behind this, they know why they are doing this, and that there are efforts or there is a plan to put this under control? When I want to come to you, what do you think? It's not coming out of nowhere.
Look, ultimately, Charles, it's the economy stupid, as they say. I mean, the general happiness of society tends to dictate the level of crime. Or, I mean, societies that are happier have lesser crime. So the more we address the general happiness of society, the less there will be crime. Without that, there will only be more crime. Because even people in the state who might be tempted to misuse guns, often is because either they don't earn enough, they can be misused by others who can give them extra money to do that and things. So until when you raise the level of happiness in society, crime invariably will always be rising. To me, that is the long-term challenge. No amount of policing, no amount of arms will eliminate crime in a society where there is inequality.
But we can deal with the petty thieves who try robbery and it ends up in a murder. That's a different matter. But if it's organized and it has a level of sophistication, it goes beyond, because you're talking about people who have possibly more resources at their exposure.
But often they have more resources and they want to protect others from accessing those resources, and those others are desperate to get those resources. So it's a struggle for resources.
You're speaking like Musa Cheri was speaking in Parliament today.
I don't know.
Yes, because Musa Cheri was saying...
my MP, but I did not hear what he said.
How much can you amass? And the leader of opposition who seconded the motion to honor Abiriga today, the Honorable Winnie Kiza, was saying, when it started, it was looked at as a problem that belonged elsewhere. Yeah, so it was discussed with that detachment.
The Honorable, the late Abiriga was, of course, embroiled in, or was in the midst of a political contest lately. And there was a lot of talk about money, for example. So you can't rule out also that money, unfortunately, maybe somebody either shortchanged him and wanted to shut him up, or
received his portion and never delivered.
Because I think it was one of
and hires the best in the country.
I mean, the investigations are just starting, but circumstantially, he had complained, for example, that he wanted to reach the president, and people were blocking him. Why were they blocking him? And now he's dead. So maybe that's why there's such fury in Arua. All these things. I mean,
I'm told part of the fury that there was a National Labour Day celebration and he wasn't involved in Arua. He wasn't put on the committee. So people are saying you'd started ignoring our man for some time, and yet he'd given himself up to you for some time. Yusuf, I want to come back to you as we move towards end of this show. We'll have a moment to come back to each one of the panelists here. The questions will abound. The politics will be there. I want to go back to a question I put to you earlier. The theory about the ADF being behind this. ADF is one rebel that I know has been declared finished, dead, wiped out for so many years. I don't know why it keeps rearing its ugly head up, but if it is true that elements of the ADF are responsible for this, what does that mean? Number two is, in the case of AIGP Kawesi, why I found the president's comment on Tuesday and again in currently quite curious, is that the investigations seem to be moving in a different direction from what he's talking about. What exactly, can ADF have that level of infiltration?
You know, one of the biggest shockers that happened, I think, in the last 2 weeks, the start of the hearing of the Suzanne Magara case, or the people who are lined up in the dock as suspects, all of them were Muslims. I found that really curious. And you know, as a Muslim community now, we are very disorganized that we can't even put our house in order. So to be able to pull off such dexterity and sophistication in these murders, I found that really baffling. But to the question you ask, the ADF looks like a ghostly outfit. You know, it shows up and disappears. We now know for a fact that its head was cut off. All right? Mukulu, who we now is the head of the movement, is in the hands of government. All right? But it's remained so powerful that, you know, at some point you feel that portraying it as powerful works for the government. Is a statement of accountability for the murders. Because, you know, but by all intents and purposes, as you've said, it's been declared wiped out many, many times. But now it's running a sort of urban warfare. And, you know, the funniest part with that is that if they're doing this thing in town, all right, in town, and State House is just here, what does that mean for this guy? And, you know, it's funny that, you know, the government at some point portrays itself as so weak that ADF actually has more power than it does. But I think that's maybe a small point. I want to think about giving violence currency, that violence now has utility that can be deployed to so many ends. All right, so firstly, we have the murders of Muslims. And, you know, the world is looking on. All right, so violence starts to simmer. And Ona has been making a point here that there's a culture of and I don't want to really agree with Ona when he says that this is criminality. I think we're dealing with an elephant which is bigger than petty criminality. This is far bigger by the ways in which these murders are executed. So, you know, violence now has currency in the sense that it can be used for monetary gains, just the way Ona has been arguing. It can also be used for political gains. All right, so we are at that point that the fish starts rotting from the head. All right, and unless you want to argue otherwise, it's only Kaikai who said one time that you know, the fish starts rotting from the tail. But I think the Baganda were very smart when they said it starts from the head. As has been said over and over again, that these murders are so professionally executed. Surely the people behind these murders are close to the powers that be. All right? And I don't know what they're going to tell us tomorrow. They're close to the powers that be. Now, the point the thing I'm starting to see happen is that we have reached a level that those who used to be hired or given the leeway to execute violence for the powers that be are now using it for their own ends. In fact, there's talk that's been going on that could be a simmering insurgency going on in this country. That the murders of the women, for example, are meant to wake up a sleepy public. Say, hey guys, wake up. We need to change government. So you create a moment of alarm. You create an environment of absolute anarchy that everybody has power to do anything. And then among other things, you can take out a guy like Abiriga. Like you asked at the beginning, why would anybody want to take out Abiriga? Because he's like the nicest, all right? He's like a clown of sorts for the NRM, all right? Why would he be taken out? The reason is not why he should be taken out, but what value does it serve to take out? What
value does it serve?
It's the point I've been trying to make. That, you know, if there's a simmering insurgency, and I'm really trying to like think through this at a very personal level, if there's a simmering insurgency, and one of the ways they see this can be done is create a moment of insecurity. You take out, you serialize your targets. First, you take out women so meticulously, kill them in their numbers. And these are just women, because men can also be killed, because many men don't have pregnancy in the town. So take out women. Then once in a while, throw in a big shot. So this is, violence now has this utility. It could either be used by government, but could also be used by those who are trying to fight it. And, you know, it's that point that you tend to agree with the president that this violence is being used for political ends. The only way I don't disagree with him is when he says that they killed Abiriga because of his political inclinations. I think that's not true. Maybe they killed him to score. That would
be a bit of a stretch, I think.
To score a larger
Joe Osia is watching us from Montana and says, when dissent is weaponized, it is an indication that we have escalated from a state of insecurity to the insecurity of the state. Honorable Abiriga was likely targeted because he had constructed a very strong brand representing the state and not just a political party. Sadly, with the element of surprise, success is always staked in favor of the ambushers. The response cannot be more guards or more political spin. Instead, the more human voices are listened to, the less we'll hear the fury of the barrel of the gun. Can I take a caller? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Okay, I'm called Richard Nyambigima, calling in from the end. Good evening, my brother Charles and the rest of the panelists. Now,
good evening, Richard.
At the beginning of this week, Minister Al-Hadi Nabduli made a statement. He categorically said, and I quote, those killings happening in this country are done by the elements of government, mainly to portray a picture that Museveni's government is no longer wanted. They are tired of him, but instead of killing people, they should just stage a coup and they topple their man instead of killing people. Those were the statements of Al-Hajj Nabuli. So, sincerely speaking, for this whole saga to end, there must be a change of government, and Ugandans should be ready to embrace change of government. These killings that are economical problems we are facing will not end until Museveni is deposed, and he's going to be deposed in a couple of months, I tell you.
You're making a very bold prediction, Richard, my brother Richard there. You're making a very bold prediction there. Okay. Joseph
sounds like an ADM spokesman.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
This is Michael Mwanji from Chotera.
Yes, Michael. Keep it brief, please.
Hello?
Yes, Michael from Chotera. I can
This
hear
is
you.
Michael Mwanji from Chotera.
Those
Yes,
who
please,
are
go ahead.
murders there.
It's like we have got no intelligence crime preventers in this Uganda. Look at what is happening in Arua. There is DISO, there is the DISO, there is the PISO, but they never detected that people are so rude and they will disturb what is happening in the country. They would have alerted security in Kampala for reinforcement. There is no crime intelligence in Uganda, and people keep on dying.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Let me take another caller. Hello? Hello? Okay. I'll take a message from Jose Nwabin. I believe Jose is in Kabula. Liantonde. He says, I am not unmindful that nobody deserves to be killed in such extrajudicial and macabre manner. But at least Abiriga's murderers showed us that they can kill anybody in order to advance their heinous mission. Surprisingly, most victims are always guided to the truth. This worries everybody. And then he adds, my worry is that by the time that program ends, someone somewhere in Zimbabwe or Masaka or Luengo will have been murdered and will probably go unreported. It's like we are in a vicious circle of murders. It's sheer exposition of breakdown of our moral fabric and lack of respect for human life. Joseph Nwabin, hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Namwaya.
Bunamaya, your name, sir?
I'm St. David.
Yes, please. David, go ahead.
Yeah, there are many killings in Uganda, as some people have mentioned this before. But I think all these things are coming because of the Mzee is not acting as a father, as a grandfather for Uganda, because we so much appreciate him for what he has done for Ugandans. But it is high time that he should also retire and appreciate and be an advisor to Ugandans. Because what is taking place in Uganda now is because people are very tired. People are very tired. Because up now, when the president came in 1986, up now, we have kids now. We have finished university. We are working. We are still having the same president. When you look at Africa, then we have changed many presidents. But in Uganda, we are having only one president. It is high time that the president should also admit and resign.
David, let me ask you a question.
He can become an advisor.
David,
That's what I
how does killing people help advance that cause? How does murder help answer your question, your prayer for a change of leadership? David?
Hello?
Yes, my question is, how does killing people help achieve a change of leadership? I think people know the address of the president, know the targets they should be going for, which should be the military. Why go for innocent people and kill them? I don't know if I'll get an answer. Someone is offering details on the murder of clerics. I'll follow up with that. And Teja Sima says, it is a theory in political science that if you want to defeat a revolutionary, you force him and do his early achievements. It is becoming difficult. Museveni brought peace. The issue of Tweba Koturo is slowly but steadily being eroded. Musa Ladu is watching us, says, NM government has for years said that the issue of security is for security agencies, and for that the people stopped caring. This is why anybody with some information may not share it with security agencies because they fear they may be considered suspects. I'll just take one or two more messages from here. I'm afraid I'm not able to take more calls. Someone watching the show says, I'm watching the Fourth Estate. I'm wondering why His Excellency said that it's ADF that killed Honorable Abiriga before any investigations carried on or concluded. A few days ago, Tumuine said it's ADF which killed those high-profile people. General Kaihura used to say it's ADF killing people in Uganda. The same day of murdering Muslims and many others without any investigations. Those are questions that remain unanswered. Let me take this message. Someone says, Dear Fourth Estate, I think people renting in Kampala should be taken, I think, checks from national IDs and all records of where they are from and where they are now settling with an agency with possibility of callback to former LCs. That's a message from Carol. Someone says, Andrew here says, you have forgotten that Honor is in the city. You haven't given him time to contribute. Is that true? Tell Honor that crime is the highest in Uganda in months, April to August, when there is harvest. When people have money, yes, when people have money. Crime declines when people have no money. Facts from 10 annual crime reports. I don't know if that is scientific. That's a message from Andrew Bagala. We need to get out of here. Our time is pretty much out. I'll take a message from Anthony, who says, all of you guys make good points. Authorities have got to get serious. How can the police investigators use car lights and torches when insane catchers utilize the best of lights? How many high-profile cases have the police successfully investigated to satisfactory conclusion? How can you preempt criminals or prevent future crime if you never conclude any investigation? Why are the 999 or 112 numbers not working effectively? Why is a Ugandan expected to know the OC's or DPC's personal phone number? The cities and towns are seriously unplanned. Fire trucks or police can't get anywhere on time, etc., until we solve some of these basic issues. We can't stop these types of crimes. Anthony, thank you so much, because I think these are the questions the security chiefs should be speaking to tomorrow when they speak to the nation. I think this is exactly what they need to speak to. If they don't do that, then they will be doing an exercise in public relations, which will end up in futility. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is out. We need to get out of here. I can hear people trying to call us and contribute to the discussion. Unfortunately, we can't take more contributions. So I'll have a last word from you. You saw the chaos that ensued in Arua this evening. I'm just wondering what will happen and how the funeral will be tomorrow. When it happens, the president is supposed to be in Arua. Someone was indicating that he's actually already in Arua. I don't know if that is true. Someone sent me a message and they'd seen a convoy, which might be his advance team or might be himself. Yes. Tomorrow.
What happened in Arua this afternoon when the casket of Honorable Abiriga and his brother arrived was expected because of the emotional outburst, but also when somebody has not died of a natural death, it's tough. I mean, those questions we're talking about now, people would want to know about the questions. And Abiriga was a member of parliament of a municipality, of a town, an urban setting. So I think it was Richard. I was also surprised that the security agencies in Arua and the intelligence did not inform. They obviously looked overwhelmed from the media, from the media outlets we were seeing. And I was also asking myself why they were not able to pick the intelligence and information to be able to be reinforced so that they are able to contain the mourners right from the airstrip up to his house. Some amount of destruction has happened from what we've been seeing, but I think they've now calmed down because they have been reinforced, and we hope that Honorable Abiriga and his brother Said Boga should be able to get their honorable, respectable burial tomorrow. And that also speaks to what we've been talking about. You have this full structures of offices in an area, but they're not able to contain or to depict or to preempt, or have even an early warning mechanism to say we are likely to have these problems, and they are reinforced, or they have just given
on the screen. Yeah.
So I thought that it was unfortunate, but again, like we all say, maybe they underestimated the emotional outbursts of most of them I saw are young people and from within the towns, and you could see that they had the field day up to the house, up to the overwhelming.
Thank you, Lydia. Our time is pretty short. We need to get out of here. Yusuf, your closing arguments on this.
Firstly, I'm worried about the Muslim community in this country. That we are suspects by default. Every time the thing happens, we are lined up for potential suspects. It's worrying that we are the victims. Abiriga was a Muslim, and the perpetrator is also Muslim. It's really funny that we often end that way, and I think it's a trend which I don't know if it feeds into the global terror. I don't know what it feeds into, but I think it's dangerous, and we need to start speaking about it. That I know Tumukunde the other day gave an interview where he said, please give up on these Muslims. They can't really execute these murders. So I think that really worries me much, because now every time there's a murder, in the dock, when the trial starts, there'll be Muslims. That's really worrying. And I think every member of this community has to be worried. It's a way of ostracizing, of tarnishing an entire community, accusing them of these things. Even when many of us, when we engage in these discussions, the picture that emerges is that really the Muslims are not as good as these killers. The other that I would finish with is the era of politicization of security is now coming to haunt us. That our security is very competent when it is handling a political crisis. All right, if it is Giza Besigye or these other people, they display the most amount of
the intelligence is spot on. The response is on point.
Very on point. Now it's coming to haunt us that when violence starts to take toll on us, we are very incompetent. We're really exposed. Like Ona said, did security have intelligence in Arua that thing is going to happen?
Thank you. I'm going to cut you there. Ona.
Look, just I spoke of the loss of soul by the country, and I think the response which emphasizes armed power, I think has its place and maybe has run its course. There is also a need for, I don't know using what it means to try to lift the nation, for people to unharden their hearts. I really worry about the hardening of hearts. The young people are actually watching murders on TV, and they talk, school children are talking about the killing of Kawesi, the killing of Abiriga, and you don't want this to become a culture in the country. For young people, for kids to believe that some people sometimes will kill, and it's part of life. So I think government has combined hard measures and some soft measures to try and change course in terms of crime and killings in the country. Then, of course, I see some people are baying for the president to leave, but I also think, again, we're having this culture of armed and killing and armed escorts and what have you. Whatever transition you have in this country, you only need to pray that it is managed. Because if you have loss of control, with all those arms out there, personalized bodyguards and what have you, then you have a recipe for warlords.
Warlords and militias.
You have a recipe for warlords. So you need to be very careful how you manage the call for Yoweri Museveni to retire or whatever.
No, last year he said, sort them out. If you see somebody following you on a border and you don't understand, stop and sort them out. Amanzuru Leslie Williams sent this message early, and he said, Charles, this country has really gone to the dogs of docility. Can you imagine that even senior police officers were checked at the late Honorable Abiriga's home when the president was visiting there, simply because Museveni was at the home of late Abiriga? Security in Uganda is only in the best interest and belief of Museveni and his family. But this is Amanzuru Leslie William That image of the deputy IGP being searched before he could access the compound the other day, which has been making rounds on social media. I'm hoping that when the security chiefs speak to the nation tomorrow, that they will actually be willing to subject themselves to being asked questions rather than issuing statements, because statements have indicated that they're not providing the answers that the country really needs. The country needs to know if anybody knows what is going on, who is responsible.
Or maybe it should be a routine so that people can even send in questions and create a relationship. Shouldn't be a one-off tomorrow. Because it's like when an incident happens, then we all get jacked and we're in shock. Then there's some work. Then again we relax.
And I think
it should be,
just as we conclude to speak to what Yusuf was talking about, this murder of Abiriga is distracting from what the women were beginning to demand answers for the murder of the women. And now the country shifts all of a sudden to a gruesome murder.
The demands again, it just speaks to what happened. We still want to know why they have reached with why women are dying and who is responsible. Those answers should be coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Onapito Ekomloit, Corporate and Legal Affairs Director at Nile Breweries AB InBev. Thank you very much, Yusuf Serunkuma. Yusuf is a PhD student at the Makerere Institute of Social Research, studying about secessionist
breakaway
nationalism in Somalia. And Lydia Wanyoto, who is actually Lydia spent some 4 years in Somalia not very long ago, and she sits on the Central Executive Committee.
Speak a single word in Somali. That shocked me.
We'll carry that discussion offline. And rest in peace, Ibrahim Abiriga. NTV will continue to bring you updates on live updates on what will be happening with the burial tomorrow. And may we pray that this is the last murder that happens in this country. But like someone said, there could be another murder happening in another part of the country as we conclude this discussion. For me, it's a good night.